Okay, so welcome back. We're in the back of the coach today. When I first built this bed, wow, way back in Corpus Christi, Texas, on the beach of Padre Island, I'd always wanted to make little ends for the mattress. Basically, the double-sized mattress is 6 or 7 inches narrower both sides than the coach, and you know, junk just keeps falling back in there. You fill it with pillows. I wanted to build a little locker in there. I never really knew what I was going to do, but I'm just going to do something quick. So this is 1.5 inches taller than the mattress, and I'll have a flip-up solid oak top on that, which will give me a little storage in there and sort of nest in the bed a little bit. I may do it along the back as well, but it's really not very much storage. I don't know if I've showed you what's going on above. It's pretty self-explanatory. I'm in the process of just finishing 3 flip-up cabinets again. Partly will hide some of that vent stack. I'll have to build something in to hide that vent stack. And then there's going to be a shelf along just at the line between the aluminum and the plastic there. That'll help create a little bit of a storage space up in there. And then I'll replace all the old plastic stripping or edging that's gone rotten, as it always does, with more aluminum strips like I did in the front. Anyway, let's see how much of that I can get done today. It's raining out today, as seems to be the case this last couple of weeks, so working on the saw is a little bit difficult, but let's get to it. Cheers. I absolutely hate scribing with a table saw, although it works really, really well. And unlike a jigsaw, which has a very short blade, because I can rest the wood against the back side of the blade that doesn't have any teeth on it, and it's only cutting on the leading edge as you make the scribe, it's actually a very good way to make a very smooth cut. It's slightly unnerving. I will at least wear safety goggles. All right. Splendid. Let's see how it fits. Happily, it's a perfect fit. That gap, large gap you have along here, is because there'll be a piano hinge in there and I need to leave enough of a gap. Now I'm going to cut this at this line because this part will stay permanently fixed, but this whole center section will flip up. And as well, we'll have a section that goes across that end that permanently affixed, only the middle section opens up. Alright, well, let's actually do it. I am getting tired of kneeling all the time. It's going good though. Okay, now this is a shelf to go up here, and it'll sit right on that aluminum strip that I put on to cover up where the old edging was. Again, more scribing work. I've got my center marked. I've scribed this a couple of times. I have a little more to do up in here, and yeah, no, that's pretty good. One of the things I'm going to do now, because this is on a slope and I want it to sit on the aluminum strip, is to take a plane and bevel the edge a bit. And I'll show you how I'm going to do that. So we'll just take a plane and we'll run it all the way around the edge to put a little bevel on this. I also have to hollow out a little section in here. I've got a small mark. And one thing that I really often do when I'm using my little plane at this angle, I'll hold it at an oblique angle or extreme angle to the wood, which allows me to go into a hollow better. If you have the plane flat, it doesn't want to go into that hollow because of the length of the sole of the plane. Whereas if you turn it sideways, it gets much shorter, and you can get right into these little hollows. I'm going to do it on my side here. There we go. Now a little bevel. Put a bevel all the way along. I'm telling you, the thing about working on Airstreams is that you're endlessly scribing. Just endlessly. Alright, take the little corner off this and see if it fits now. Haha, perfect. More things to stain. Alright. Hi, I wanted to show you a tool you may not be aware of. You know when you're installing hinges and you got to drill a hole exactly in the center of that countersunk hole on the wood to make sure that the chamfer on the countersunk screw sits in it perfectly, and well, that's not always easy. Enter the self-centering bit, if I can show this to you properly. It's a drill, but it's got a sleeve, an outer sleeve around it that's spring-loaded, It has a chamfer on the end. So basically when you want to drill a hole exactly in the center of a chamfered hinge or some other sort of thing, you simply put the chamfer against the hinge and push and drill, and it drills a hole perfectly centered. Here, I'll show you. Hope you didn't get too dizzy. Here I am installing these hinges. I haven't drilled the center holes yet. Place it against there, you give it a quick shot, and I have holes perfectly centered in for my hinges. Pretty neat, huh? This particular one I bought from Lee Valley in Canada. I think you can get them from all kinds of different suppliers, but don't install hinges without them. You can get them all different sizes too. Cheers! Okay, so you may remember me mentioning that the original in-floor heat that I put in here, I'm sure you've seen a clip of it at some point, we changed the flooring to a vinyl flooring, which I thought would be a good idea because it would have more density and the heat would come through it better and it would be thinner and it would be waterproof, except it has absolutely no structural strength. And I may have showed you that basically the vinyl just started to hump up over all the tubing. You can see an echo of where the tubing was from the tar that was down around it. Because the vinyl having no strength, it meant that when you stepped on the vinyl floor between the tubing, it just crushed the foam between, and it was crushed flat in no time. So it all had to come out. But I may have mentioned that when I put in the second floor, the vinyl floor, the tubing and foam was all in good shape. But I used acoustic sealant between the tubing and the bottom of the floor to make a really good thermal bond. It was great. It worked beautifully. The only problem was taking it out was a nightmare. And it's taken me 2 days to get it out and clean up again. Between pulling the hose up and it springing back and still being wet with tar and foam and sticky, it was unbelievable. Cleaning tar off everything in here, scraping back off the floor, because of course it went down between each serpentine line, because when I cut through with the hot knife to get the tubing in, it cut right to the floor. Anyway, huge job, it's done. And I'm ready to put new foam down, new tubing, thank goodness I had some more, and new high quality click engineered flooring that will be strong and will span over and be structural. Gosh, let's get to it. We get one chance with this now. Okay, so I've laid out one end. Hope there's enough light in here. You can see this. You can see the serpentine lines I've drawn on the floor. That's where the pipe is going to go. Basically, it returns here, under there. You can see the old plumbing, and it's supplied here, and the front loop is supplied there and returns there. I have two loops so that I can move twice as much water through the floor. I had originally intended to have two zones, but this way I can be fairly sure I'm putting hot water in and only loading half the floor with one set of hot water. The truth is, the water only comes back about a degree or two cooler, so it's really, there wasn't much loss on the floor because I'm flowing it quite quickly. I'm also, I don't know if you remember, putting the tubing much more close together than I did before. I did it on 6.5 inches before. I'm on 4 now, which will really increase the heat output. Not that it wasn't working great, but I could feel that there were warm strips and not warm strips in the floor, and you know, that's kind of frustrating. There's an opportunity to do it right. So anyway, the back loop is all laid out, and now it's time to lay out the front loop. And out. Excellent. Works perfectly. Not perfectly, because I don't get one line over here in the entrance, but to tell you the truth, this is where Geordie likes to sleep, and I've often considered not heating this section of the floor. But the truth is, it's also where wet footwear sits, and it's a good idea to keep it warm. Actually, Geordie spends most of his time in the bathroom. Okay, now, I keep saying now for the fun part. Now for the really fun part, and that is setting up the soldering iron to cut slots in this foam. Stinky. That should do a pretty good job. Let's do a test run. Cutting the actual troughs, no fun. Keep the windows open. move at exactly the right speed that you're melting it without burning it. It's still no fun. And it's very slow. Smell that? Yum. Well, and there we go. The troughs are all done. Really, no fun at all. But I'm really pleased as it went really well the first time I did it. In some ways it went even better this time. Now, I have a shorter radius, a smaller radius, and so the tubing has to be able to make a 4-inch radius, and I've tested it several times. The problem is it does want to spring back a bit. So I'm just praying that there's enough adhesive holding the foam to the floor to keep it all from like flying out. Because after all, I have cut the foam right through to the plywood. So these are all individual pieces of foam now. The only thing holding them in place is the glue. Laying in the tube. It's going well, but it's stressful. Again, PEX can take a remarkably small radius bend, but it has to be warmed. So by flexing it back and forth as you try to get it into the radius, the heat of friction within the bend will warm it up enough that it can make that turn. But it's stressful because if I put one kink in it, I'm done. I gotta take the whole thing out and do it again. And worse than that, I don't have enough tube to do it again. So let's get this in right. This is special order tubing, not easily obtainable, 3/8 PEX. You can get it though from Amazon. I'm really pleased. The foam seems to be holding really well. There's a lot of stress on it. There we go. And my troughs seem to be exactly the right size, and that makes me happy. A real trick to making sure that these loops don't pop out is making sure it comes off the coil flat, and so there's no twists in it, because PEX, you put a twist in it and it'll twist back and pop right back out of these corners. Now if you look behind me, it appears that there's a twist in it, but there isn't. It's just the nature of it. In other words, it came flat off the roll and straight out into the floor here. It's going pretty good. It's certainly quicker than cutting the troughs, and really not that much more stressful, and no smell. Warmed up a bit. I'm really pleased that I'm using a 4-inch spacing. It'll be just that much more effective. Alright, let's take a little more off the spool. Having lived with this in-floor now, well, not this in-floor, but the previous version, for a fair while, I can't imagine living in an Airstream, or anything actually, without in-floor heat. And the thing is, I'm now actually also working on a boat that I'm going to live on, and trying to figure out how to do in-floor in the boat. A little more complicated because the boat floor has to have all kinds of panels that have to be able to lift that to access things like, well, the engine. I should probably turn you guys off soon. Can't be watching this all day. It's going well though, really well. Okay, that's enough for you guys. Well, just about done this floor. Anyone who knows me will know that I really don't like click flooring, but there's a place for everything, I suppose, and the truth is, this is particularly good stuff. It's actually an engineered wood product. The top veneer is actual real wood instead of just a picture of wood, and there's sort of a bit of plywood on the bottom, but of course everything in between is MDF. But still, this is the best click flooring I've ever used. It clicks together beautifully. It stays square. This is not the easiest place to lay down a click floor because There's so many ins and outs, but really could be worse. You don't get much straight runs. A few more pieces and this will be done. It's a lovely floor. I really, really like it. A lot of people are going to think this is all very dark, but I just love that dark, rich wood, and then you add lots of light to bring it back up. Anyway, click down a few more pieces of click. Cheers. Well, it's moving day from our fabulous spot had here in Victoria Harbour at the West Bay Marine Park. It was just a super spot to have, especially to work on the trailer and so close to where the boat is. Anyway, as the trailer is relatively tidy right now, let me take you in for a little tour. Only about 99% complete, but there are a few little things that need to be done, obviously. Anyway, show it the front. Obviously, you remember that horrible plastic thing that was here? So this is all in. It's 4 inches higher here, so when you sit here, you can fit underneath, which is nice. And much higher on the sides. I think that worked out well. Replaced that horrible set of switches with a little panel with some nice switches on it. New upholstery worked out. You've seen the new countertop already in solid oak. Really, really pleased with the way that turned out. And the stainless steel tile backsplash, just love it. New stove by Suburban, and the new fridge by Norcold. Really happy with the fridge, it's awesome. Again, all the drawers are nice soft close, which is great because it also keeps them shut when you're traveling. So if we work our way backwards, this is a hanging locker, just full of junk right now. Into the back, which is not news to everybody. Again, the soft close drawers there, all the storage underneath, and new cabinets up above, as well as a shelf in the back there. Turned out really well. The bathroom I just finished today, sort of finished, and I got all that black acrylic in, and I think it's awesome. A fantastic solution for waterproofing. I do not know if you're able to see at all with the light that's going on in here, but that worked out really neat. And the old trick of a $9 stainless steel sink out of a mixing bowl. Neat little trick here. I don't know if you noticed this little arc in the top of the door here. That's because to close the door, I haven't got a handle on it yet, so I can't really pull it shut. But anyway, it sits against that, and when it opens, it clears the ceiling. Worked out really well. Feels kind of apocalyptic. This is a very popular RV park in Victoria, British Columbia, right on the waterfront looking into downtown. It's where I first lived when I first came to Victoria in the trailer, and the trailer's been back here for a while working on it, and it's been sold. In fact, it's been taken over by the people who own the land, and it's really weird to be here and see it basically completely empty. End of an era. Apparently it's going to be an RV park again someday. Cheers.